From the moment the news of Arthur's illness spread, the Sterling mansion changed. The news spread through the mansion like poison. His children's reactions were colder than he imagined, but one person listened silently, the young housemaid no one noticed. From that moment, strange things began to happen. One evening, she entered his room with a glass of juice, glancing around before locking the door. Once she was inside, she did something very unusual. The billionaire, pretending to sleep, felt a wave of fear. She placed the juice down, then took his hand, her touch cold, trembling, deliberate. What happened next was so shocking. Even the billionaire himself could not believe it. A sudden knock startled her. She unlocked the door to find the billionaire's youngest daughter glaring. "Why was this door locked?" she demanded. "To clean," the maid lied, quickly leaving. The daughter turned to her father. Something felt wrong. His right hand was wet. Too wet. What had the maid done while the door was locked? If you're already asking what happened in that room and why his hands were wet, you're not ready for the storm that's coming. This is the tale of a billionaire who faked his death to test love, only to uncover betrayal, secrets, and a truth that would shatter everything he believed.
Hello guys, haven't subscribed yet? Please subscribe now, hit the like button, and leave a comment to help.
In the opulent city of Viridia lived a billionaire, Arthur Sterling. His name was etched into the city's soul, synonymous with sterling innovations, a global empire he had built brick by brick, deal by deal. To the world, Arthur was a symbol of power, wealth, and unshakable will. But behind the marble walls of his mansion, the man was haunted. As age crept into his golden years, a single question consumed him like a shadow. Did his children love him, or only the empire and fortune that bore his name? The Sterling heirs. Arthur's 4 children were as dazzling and as flawed as the wealth they were born into. Marcus, his eldest, was a man of sharp suits and sharper ambition. He spent his nights sipping whiskey in private lounges with men twice as ruthless, plotting how to seize his father's CEO chair. Arthur often overheard Marcus' conversations, filled with hollow flattery and thinly veiled demands for power. To Marcus, love was a currency, and affection was only worth as much as the company's quarterly profits. Lydia, Arthur's second child, was the embodiment of beauty and excess. Her life was a carousel of champagne-soaked parties in exotic locations. She floated through the fashion capitals of the world, draped in designer gowns worth the salary of 100 maids, and demanded more money with every passing week to fuel her insatiable lifestyle. "Daddy, I just have to have the new limited edition diamond clutch," she would purr over the phone, her hugs always as cold as her diamond-studded wrists. Julian, the rebellious third child, claimed to hate wealth but burned through money faster than anyone else. He was a fixture at high-stakes poker tables, losing small fortunes in a single night. When not gambling, he spent recklessly on luxury cars, dangerous parties, and questionable friends, who vanished as soon as his wallet closed. Arthur often bailed him out of scandals before they could tarnish the family name. And then there was Clara, the youngest. She was sweet-faced, always quick to whisper, "I love you, Daddy." But Arthur's instincts told him her sugar-coated words masked something darker. Unlike the others, Clara played the perfect daughter, at least on the surface. Deep inside, Arthur feared that even her kindness might just be another mask, carefully worn to win his favor. The silent maid. Amid all this glittering chaos was Elara, the new maid. She had been with the family less than a year, but unlike the others in the household, she moved with quiet dignity. She was nearly invisible, her footsteps light, her words few, her work impeccable. Yet Arthur noticed something strange. Whenever she delivered his tea or dusted his office, her gaze would linger, just for a second, on the family portrait on his desk. Her eyes would soften, a sad, almost longing look crossing her face before she forced herself back to her duties. Arthur dismissed it as curiosity, unaware that this silent maid carried secrets deeper than any vault in his empire. Fifth, Arthur's doubts about his children festered until they became unbearable. He needed to know the truth. Were they waiting for him to die like vultures circling their prey, or did even a shred of real love remain? So he devised a dangerous plan. Calling in his oldest and most trusted friend, Dr. Ben Carter, Arthur issued an unusual command. "Tell them I'm very sick," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "Tell them I have only a few months to live." Dr. Carter's brows furrowed. "Arthur, are you certain about this? Deception this cruel could destroy what little family you have left." Arthur's eyes turned to steel. "If they love me only for my money, then I have no family to lose." Though reluctant, Carter agreed, his conscience heavy with unease. Arthur's next order was to Frank, his loyal head of security. "Install cameras everywhere. Hallways, studies, the garden, the pool house. I want to see everything. Hear everything. No one must know." Within days, a secret network of cameras fed into a hidden control room. A room only Arthur had access to. From this dark sanctuary, he would watch as his family unknowingly revealed who they truly were. He would become a silent judge of their souls. A house of shadows. From the moment the news of Arthur's illness spread, the Sterling mansion changed. The siblings' false grief turned the halls into a theater of lies. Marcus spoke in hushed, urgent tones to his lawyers over encrypted calls, already drafting his takeover plan. Lydia wept dramatically over brunch, only to spend Arthur's final days ordering another parade of designer dresses. Julian began sneaking strangers into the house, his debts growing like weeds, while Clara, ever the actress, pressed kisses to her father's hand with syrupy smiles. But Arthur saw the flicker of impatience in her eyes when she thought no one was watching. Only Elara remained unchanged, quiet, steady, and oddly sad. The charade began like a storm brewing on a clear day. Dr. Ben Carter, his face grave and his voice heavy with false sincerity, called for an urgent family meeting in the lavish drawing room of the Sterling estate. Arthur Sterling, seated in his high-backed leather chair, played his part to perfection, a frail man staring down the shadow of death. "Your father," Dr. Carter announced, "has been diagnosed with a rare, incurable brain disease. 6 months, perhaps less." The room froze. Claire was the first to react. She ran to Arthur's side, tears streaming, her arms wrapping around him like a desperate child clinging to hope. Her soft sobs stirred a flicker of warmth in Arthur's weary heart. Maybe one of them still loves me, he thought. But the warmth quickly faded as he studied the others. Lydia's gasp was overly dramatic, her mascara-perfect eyes darting, not to her father, but to the priceless collection of Italian paintings lining the wall. Arthur's stomach twisted as he saw the gleam of calculation in her gaze. Julian paled, but it wasn't grief that clouded his face. It was fear. His debts, his disastrous choices, were already circling him like vultures. And Marcus, ever pragmatic, cut through the tension with a question so cold it felt like a blade. Is his mind still sound? Can he still make business decisions? Arthur's heart hardened. The test had begun. The schemes unfold. Days melted into weeks, and Arthur, cloaked in his active frailty, watched every move through the hidden cameras Frank had installed. Marcus was the first to show his hand. "We need to secure the CEO transition," Arthur heard him whisper into the phone. "I'm ready to lead, before the old man makes a final, irrational decision." Lydia wasted no time either. Arthur nearly dropped his glass when he heard her on a call. "Yes, I'll sell the 6 Italian paintings. My father won't need them anymore. Make sure they're gone before the funeral." The paintings, masterpieces he'd collected over decades, were being auctioned off as if he were already in the ground. Julian was worse. Desperate to repay a dangerous gambling debt, Arthur watched in horror as his son spoke to a man with a voice like broken glass. "I'll get you the money once he's gone. He's worth billions. Just give me time." Each betrayal was a knife twisting deeper into Arthur's heart. And then amid all the greed and rot there was Elara. The hidden cameras caught her in the laundry room, collapsed against a washing machine, sobbing uncontrollably. Arthur stared at the screen bewildered. "Frank," he asked his head of security, "how long has she worked here?" 11 months, sir," Frank replied, his tone puzzled. "Why is she crying like this?" Arthur muttered, leaning closer to the screen. Elara was shaking, her grief raw and real, so unlike the hollow performances of his children. He tried to dismiss it, telling himself she was just a kind soul overwhelmed by his illness. But something about her tears clung to his mind.
Hello guys, haven't subscribed yet? Please subscribe now, hit the like button, and leave a comment to help.
The betrayal escalates. The weeks grew darker. Marcus and Lydia's schemes became bolder. Arthur nearly tore the headset from his ears when he heard them whispering to Dr. Carter in the hallway. "We think his mind is going," Lydia said sweetly, her voice dripping with false concern. "He's confused. Unstable." Marcus leaned in, his tone colder, threatening. "If you declare him mentally unfit, the board will fast-track me as CEO. You'll be compensated. Handsomely." Dr. Carter recoiled in disgust. "How dare you? Your father is more lucid than the two of you combined. I will not be part of this." He stormed out, leaving Marcus and Lydia fuming like cornered snakes. Arthur's hands shook as he watched. His own children wanted him locked away, stripped of power as if he were some madman. Then came Julian's betrayal. When his creditors tightened their noose, Julian tried to blackmail Marcus. "I'll expose your shady deals if you don't give me money," Julian sneered. Marcus laughed in his face. "Expose me? Who would believe you, a drug-addled gambler? Try it and I'll bury you." The brothers, once inseparable, were now wolves fighting over a corpse that hadn't even died yet. Claire's mask. Through it all, Clara remained a beacon of light, or so Arthur thought. She read to him by the fire, brought fresh juice to his bedside, and kissed his forehead with warmth that almost melted his suspicions. But Arthur was no fool. He needed to know if her devotion was real. So he set a trap. The final test. Arthur hired actors disguised as nurses to stage a conversation just outside Clara's reach. Their voices carried deliberately through the hallway. A new experimental drug in Switzerland. It could cure him, but it's outrageously expensive. Arthur held his breath, watching from his secret room. Clara's reaction was instant, but not what he had hoped for. Instead of running to tell him the good news, she sought out Marcus and Lydia. Her sweet, airy tone hardened into something cold. "I heard there's a possible cure," she said, "but it costs millions. If he survives, he keeps everything." Lydia's eyes narrowed like a predator's. Marcus leaned back, calculating. Then Clara said the words that shattered Arthur's heart into pieces. "He's lived a long life. It's kinder to let him go peacefully. We do nothing. We don't tell him. In a few months we'll be free and rich." The three of them shook hands, their pact forged in betrayal over their father's metaphorical grave. In his secret room, Arthur wept for the first time in years. The daughter he had cherished most was the most monstrous of them all. "The test is over," Dr. Carter said softly, his tone heavy with the weight of secrets. The man, known for his unshakable integrity, barely glanced at Arthur as he scribbled something on his notepad. "No," Arthur's voice, though frail and cracked, turned to ice. "Now the punishment begins." The final 48 hours. The announcement of Arthur Sterling's declining health spread through the mansion like wildfire. Dr. Carter, his face pale with regret, told the gathered family that Arthur had less than 2 days to live. Instead of rushing to his bedside, his 4 children, Marcus, Lydia, Julian, and Clara, retreated into heated, greedy conversations with their lawyers. Their whispers of legal strategies and inheritance divisions echoed through the marble halls, as cold and lifeless as their love. But one person heard the news differently. Elara, the quiet maid, stood frozen in the grand dining hall. The silver tray in her hands slipped from her trembling grip, sending glasses crashing onto the marble floor. The sound of shattering crystal echoed like a gunshot. Her face twisted with shock and grief. Tears threatened to spill as the reality struck her. He was dying. The man she had spent her life secretly watching from the shadows. The man she had called father only in her heart, would soon leave this world never knowing the truth. The visit. That evening, Arthur lay in bed, his performance flawless. A man teetering on the edge of death. His breathing was shallow, his body slack, his face pale under the dim glow of the bedside lamp. But behind his closed eyes, Arthur watched. Hidden cameras relayed every corner of his room to a discreet monitor just beyond his bedside table. It was there he saw Elara. She moved hesitantly down the hallway, a small bowl of steaming pepper soup trembling in her hands. When she reached his door, she paused, her chest rising and falling in rapid, uneven breaths. Then, as if summoning courage from deep within, she stepped inside. Her eyes swept the room cautiously, scanning as though to ensure they were alone. Then Arthur saw something that made his heart pound against his ribs. She turned and with trembling fingers locked the door. Fear. Arthur's blood ran cold. His mind raced. What is she doing? Was this the moment his elaborate charade turned into a real tragedy? Had his test gone too far? For the first time since faking his illness, he felt genuine fear. But Elara did not move toward him with malice. Instead, she approached slowly, reverently, like someone approaching a shrine. She sank to her knees beside the bed, her breath coming in small, trembling waves. Her warm hand slid into his cold one, and Arthur felt a rush of emotion he couldn't name. Then her tears, hot, unrelenting, spilled onto his skin. And then she spoke. The confession. "My dear, dear father." The words struck him like lightning. His chest tightened, his mind went blank. "Father," she repeated, pressing his hand to her cheek. "I'm so sorry. I was so scared to tell you." Arthur's heart thundered. Every word clawed at the walls he had built around his heart for years. But he didn't move. He couldn't. "It was 25 years ago," Elara whispered, her voice cracking like fragile glass. "My mother, a poor seamstress, met you during a storm in a small cafe. You were kind to her. She said you gave her enough to start a new life. That night changed everything. She raised me alone, telling me stories of the man who gave her hope, the man I would only ever see in newspapers and photographs." Arthur's mind drifted to a memory he thought he'd buried forever. A rainy night in a forgotten town, a girl with bright eyes and a laugh that had healed something broken in him, if only for a moment. He had never seen her again. Elara's voice broke through his haze. "When she died, I came here. I found a job as your maid just to be close to you. I never wanted your money. I only wanted my father." Her tears fell faster now. "But now you're leaving this world, and if I never tell you, I'll regret it forever. I love you, father. I have always loved you." Arthur's heart shattered, not from pain, but from love and regret so deep it was almost unbearable. He yearned to open his eyes, to take her hand and say, "I believe you." But the test wasn't over. The interruption. A sharp knock startled Elara. She jumped up, hastily wiping her eyes. With one last lingering look at Arthur, she bent down and pressed a trembling kiss to his forehead. A kiss of a daughter saying goodbye. Unlocking the door, she stepped back just as Clara appeared, her expression a mask of feigned concern. "Elara," Clara's voice was sharp. "What were you doing in here? Why was the door locked?" I'm sorry, miss," Elara stammered, her heart still pounding. "I must have locked it by accident while cleaning." Clara's eyes narrowed. Without waiting for permission, she brushed past Elara and approached Arthur's bed. Taking his hand, she frowned. "Why are his hands wet?" she muttered, a flicker of suspicion in her eyes. Elara lowered her gaze, her hands twisting nervously in her apron. Clara's stare lingered on her for a heartbeat too long. Then with a dismissive sniff she waved the thought aside. But the seed of suspicion had been planted.
Hello guys, haven't subscribed yet? Please subscribe now, hit the like button, and leave a comment to help.
The day of the will reading arrived like the calm before a storm. The opulent salon of Sterling Innovations in Viridia shimmered with cold luxury, its gilded walls reflecting the tension simmering in the air. The front row was reserved for the heirs, Marcus, Lydia, Julian, and Clara, each dressed in somber black, their faces perfectly composed yet their eyes gleaming with expectation. They were poised like vultures circling their prize. At the back of the room, Elara moved quietly, almost unnoticed, serving coffee to the gathered guests. Her hands trembled with the weight of grief. 4 months she had watched her father, Arthur Sterling, grow weaker, believing that death was only days away. Today was supposed to be his final farewell, and her heart broke all over again at the thought. The lawyer, a tall man with a weathered face and an air of unshakable authority, stepped to the podium. His voice, deep and deliberate, cut through the hushed whispers. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to witness the reading of Arthur Sterling's last will and testament. The room held its breath. The man paused, adjusting his papers, but instead of reading, he announced, "Before we proceed, Mr. Sterling left a personal message for you all." A quiet click echoed as a screen descended from the ceiling. The crowd turned, expecting a pre-recorded farewell, perhaps a sentimental message from a dying man. But the moment the screen flickered to life, a collective gasp rippled through the room. Arthur Sterling stared back at them, alive, vibrant, his piercing blue eyes burning with a fire none of them had seen in years. "My dear children," his voice boomed, calm yet chilling. "Marcus, Lydia, Julian, Clara, I am not dead. My illness was a test you all failed spectacularly." The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the sound of someone's breath hitching in disbelief. Marcus's jaw tightened, Lydia's hand flew to her mouth, Julian went pale and Clara froze wide-eyed. Then the screen changed. Footage from hidden cameras filled the salon. Clips of Marcus plotting ruthless corporate takeovers, Lydia selling forged artwork under the family name, Julian's desperate late-night calls to shady associates, and Clara's cold, venomous declaration, "Let him die. It's better this way." The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, and murmurs rose like waves in a storm. The 4 heirs looked as though the floor had been ripped from under them, their faces twisted with rage and humiliation. "Because of your greed and lack of a single shred of compassion," Arthur's voice hardened, "you are all disinherited. Every penny, every asset of Sterling Innovations will go to a charitable foundation, overseen by a new, deserving heir." Marcus shot up from his seat, fury flashing in his eyes. "This is a trick. This is illegal." But before anyone could react, the heavy double doors at the far end of the salon burst open with a resounding bang. The crowd fell silent. Arthur Sterling walked in, not frail, not sick, but commanding. He wore a sharp midnight blue suit that seemed to shimmer under the chandelier's light. His presence was electric, his steps deliberate. Each footfall echoed like a gavel of judgment. His 4 children stared, their mouths open, their carefully constructed facades crumbling to dust. In the shadows of the doorway, Elara froze. Her heart soared at first. He was alive. She wanted to cry with relief, to laugh at her foolish grief. But as quickly as the joy came, it was swept away by a wave of dread. If he wasn't sick, then he had heard her confession last night. He had heard every word she had whispered to what she thought was an unconscious man, that she believed she was his daughter, that she loved him despite everything. What would he think of her now? Would he see her as just another vulture waiting for her chance to strike? "Father," Marcus's voice trembled, the word sounding hollow and desperate. You're not sick." Arthur's voice cut like steel. "No, Marcus, I'm not sick. But I have seen a sickness of the soul, in all of you. He gestured to the screen, which now played a darker montage of lies and betrayals, each secret exposed like a blade twisted into the heart. Your greed disgusts me. Your betrayal ends today. You are all disinherited. You will leave this house with nothing. If you dare challenge me, these recordings will find their way to the authorities. With a nod from Arthur, the security guard stepped forward. The 4 siblings shouted, cursed, begged, but it was no use. Their cries echoed through the hall as they were dragged out, their legacy shattered. When the last voice faded, silence blanketed the room. Arthur Sterling stood alone in the center, a king who had just cast out his false heirs. Then his gaze shifted. Slowly, his eyes swept the room until they found her. Elara, he said softly. She flinched, her breath catching. Her legs wanted to run, but she was rooted to the spot, trembling. Arthur approached, his steps slow, his gaze unreadable. I was not asleep last night, he said gently. Elara's lips parted, but no sound came. Tears welled in her eyes, and she lowered her head, waiting for his anger. I heard everything, he continued, his voice breaking ever so slightly. He stopped before her, his tall frame casting a shadow over her small, fragile one. She forced herself to look up, bracing for disgust or rejection. But instead she saw tears glistening in his eyes. Not anger, pain. And something deeper, recognition. "My daughter," he whispered. His voice cracked on the word. For a moment time stopped. Elara's knees buckled as a sob tore from her throat. She fell into his arms, clutching him as if afraid he'd vanish. Arthur held her tightly, a father's embrace, one he'd missed for 26 years. In that moment, Arthur Sterling lost 4 children to greed but gained the one soul who truly mattered. The daughter who had no interest in his fortune, only in his love. And as he held her, he knew the truth. His greatest test had not been about wealth. It had been about family. Thought-provoking and interactive. This story reminds us that family isn't defined by blood, but by loyalty and love. Arthur's greatest treasure wasn't his billions. It was finding someone who cared without asking for anything in return. Do you think money always shows people's true colors? I'd love to hear your view below.
Hello guys, I hope you enjoyed our stories. Please hit the like button, leave a comment below and subscribe to our channel.